Fantastic. So yeah, I've just been asked to chair the JPNL because Trustee Bachhorst is still at work and not in front of the agenda. So I'm going to help out and share JPNL. I forget, I rarely start meetings. So if there's anything I'm forgetting here, guys, please just let me know. If I'm not forgetting anything, then we can move right into the agenda item number 1, consider Class B beer license for MJR Fitness LLC, doing business as Brew Fitness, 3514 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin, 53211. Tyler, would you like to talk about this?
I think, Diane, are you gonna, did Sarah put you as the staff person to talk about it?
I can a little bit. She didn't ask me to, but I can a little bit.
Sorry, Diane. I didn't see, I saw Sarah on here and I didn't see Sarah here. So I just wanted to apologize.
That's okay. Let's see what I can do. So this is pretty straightforward from my understanding. It is a fitness center that is asking for a Class B beer license. We do have them available. I think the attachment showed that, let me see if I can find it. The attachment showed that we do have them available. She did want me to make note that while the village has a limit on those, that it is not a statutory limit. So if we would need additional ones in the future, they could be made available.
Oh, fantastic, I appreciate that. It'd be nice to hear from Brew Fitness. If you guys are on the line, we'd love to hear a little bit about your business. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the call today. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Awesome. We're right in the swing of things here in the gym. So I opened the original Brew Fitness in Walker's Point 4 years ago. It was kind of a unique concept at the time to combine craft beer and functional fitness. Since then, the whole craft beer scene in the Milwaukee area has boomed. We were a little bit before that boom, so it was kind of fun that we got into that realm a little bit before it became such a niche. But we really focus on the social camaraderie part of fitness. So we've got a simple kegerator system at our front desk. We only feature local Milwaukee-based breweries on tap, and it's more of just creating the social environment. Somebody comes in, does a really great workout, and then sticks around and has a beer with some of their workout buddies, before they head out for the night. So definitely not a nightclub, not a rager, not anything that causes any nuisances, really just focusing on supporting other breweries in the community and being more of that social experience.
Fantastic. So how long have you been open? I apologize if you said that and I missed it.
4 years.
4 years. Can you talk about, I'm just really interested in the business, so I apologize, but I just love to know like the growth over that 4 years and how people have you seen more people come in to drink or more people exercise or maybe a mixture of both? What are what's your main market?
We're definitely a fitness studio primarily. We actually do very, very little in alcohol sales. There's a lot of gyms out there, a lot of CrossFit studios that just have a kegerator, have beer, and they're just all illegal taverns. I just wanted to make sure that I went about and did things kosher, and I was, following all the rules, since we kind of heavily advertise that that's our thing. It's working out and drinking a beer. So it was pretty hard to start a brand from start. It's not like you're jumping in with a franchise that already has a name recognition behind it. So it was fairly slow going 4 years ago when I opened. But after about 6 months, word started getting out. It was a lot of just word of mouth advertisement. People who came in thought it was a really fun place and told their friends. And we steamrolled from there. So after being open about 6 months, we started growing pretty rapidly. So down here in Walker's Point, we leased 3,000 square feet initially in fall of 2019. So a little after 2 years after being opened, we leased the unit next door to us and doubled our square footage. So we're a little over 6,000 square feet right now. And it actually was only a few months after that, we added about 150 new members in the course of about 3 months. And we would have hoped to open in Shorewood this time last year if it wasn't for COVID. So we started looking at spaces and obviously put everything on the back burner, but we pretty much picked up right where we left off a year ago. Business is strong. Supporting local has been a really big focus this past year. The fact that, you know, not only are we a locally owned business, but we really do a lot with the community and fundraising. We just did our first Shorewood charity event the other day in River Park across the street from our new place. We did a charity boot camp for Gigi's Playhouse. So we always do different charities of the month, lots of stuff with the community. So we're excited to hopefully get into Shorewood, hitting the ground running. And obviously the liquor license just helps kind of keep that social aspect of the gym that, you know, makes people want to stick around and do more than just work out.
Fantastic. My only other question for you is what made Shorewood an attractive community to open a business?
You know, we had a lot of members over the last 4 years now who I think Walker's Point is really where people move to right after college. You know, they get a good job. They live in one of the many apartments that have went up in this neighborhood. And we've had a lot of people who want to buy a house, and they either buy a house in Bayview and we're still super close, or they buy a house in Shorewood and we're just a little too far away for them to travel. So Shorewood seems like the perfect market for us. We also look kind of up in Mequon, Bayshore, but I think Shorewood has a lot to offer and doesn't have a whole lot in the fitness realm right now. So I think getting another gym in Shorewood is something that the community definitely could use. And then something like this, where it's kind of a unique play on socializing and kind of a little bit more outside the box. We've gotten a lot of feedback that Shorewood is an area that really wants to kind of get more facilities like ours that are a little different, more unique to the area.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you for thinking of our community. It sounds like a great business and you sound like a great proprietor. So really appreciate you guys thinking about Shorewood and looking forward to checking this place out. So love to pass it off though to Trustee Baldoff or Trustee Bockhorst if they have any questions or comments. Trustee Baldoff, why don't I just go with you?
Yeah, thanks. I don't have any questions. I would just echo what Arthur said. I think this sounds like a really cool concept, and you know, I'm glad that you guys chose Shorewood, and we'd be really excited to have you here doing this kind of thing.
Awesome, thank you.
Trustee Bockhorst, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Well, thanks again. And I think this will be coming up at our June 21st meeting. And I would assume that the three of us are pretty aligned on recommending a beer license for Brew Fitness. So really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on and answering some questions.
You might just need to make a motion.
Sorry, just looking in there. I didn't see a motion, but I move to approve a beer Class B. So I move to approve a Class B fermented malt beverage license to MJR Fitness LLC, doing business as Brew City Fitness.
I'll second that.
Okay, and can I just clarify to move it to the board for recommendation?
Move it to the board.
For approval.
Yep, move it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. All right. Seeing that, I don't think Trustee Bockhorst is here, and Trustee Baldoff seconded it. I think we're fine, right?
Yeah,
okay.
We are.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Okay. Okie dokie. Moving right along here. So agenda item number 2 is consider appointments. I know Trustee Bockhorst may have wanted to speak on this, but I will pass that off to you as well. Diane, we'll see if Trustee Bockhorst has anything to add on this note. Otherwise, I was a part of the process as well. So,
okay. So I believe the memo. So I believe the memo notes that there were resignations from the Conservation Committee and a resignation from the Design Review Board. It looks like the Conservation Committee chair is making a recommendation, and the Design Review Board has not recommended anyone, but they are looking for a landscape artist. Yeah, architect. Let's try that.
I think it's both. It's the same. One of the
artist,
same.
Architect. You know.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Do we? So are we just moving to recommend? I haven't really seen. I haven't been able to jump in and look at the application here. Do you have, is there a recommendation for how to move forward with this?
So it looks like Sarah is asking the board to appoint this Aaron Kovac, who was recommended by the Conservation Committee Chair for them to be appointed. And then I see a recommendation for an appointment to the Design Review Board, but I don't see a name. So I believe that might have just, she was waiting for some confirmation or recommendation, but I didn't receive it. I don't know if Tyler received something.
I did hear the name for Design Review Board.
Okay.
And I believe that was Libra Loest.
Okay.
Because she actually has the background that was needed for the Design Review Board. So I think there was a recommendation to have her on Design Review Board.
Libra Loest. So should we, you know, and I, you know, in this kind of process, if a board is making the recommendation, I lean heavily in that direction. Trustee Baldoff, if you have any thoughts on the approval of these two nominations.
I agree. If these, you know, if our boards and committees are making recommendations to us, I think that these appointments are going to be the right ones.
Yeah. So should we just make a motion? Do you mind if we make a motion, Tyler, just to do this if there's nothing else to add on these two?
Yep.
So Trustee Baldoff, do you want to move these folks through here? You want to?
Sure, I will do that.
Fantastic.
Okay, I move to recommend the appointment of Aaron Kovac to the Conservation Committee. Do I need to do them separately or together?
She has them listed separately. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So you know, second.
Okay. And
aye.
All
right. Thank you.
And Tyler, can you tell me the name of the person for the Design Review Board so I don't get it wrong?
Sure. If I may, I see Tammy just joined, so I might just give it 15 seconds to see if she comes on and speaks.
Sure.
Yeah, hi guys, sorry.
Okay.
I am just jumping back on, so I missed up until I heard my name.
For the Design Review Board, Tammy, did you get confirmation that Libra Loest was the recommended name for that committee?
Yes, I did. Okay. That is confirmed, and she is excited and willing to serve and understands the duties of the office.
And I will say, as the Parks Commission liaison, I've worked with Libra for, I think it's been 3 years now. She was an excellent Parks Commission member. So as far as attendance was at every meeting. So
I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I will say that to me, it seemed like it was kind of a difficult decision for her, Tyler, just because she really was excited about, you know, being part of the reforming or the merging of the committees, but also, you know, her passions. And, you know, this is, in some ways, I guess you could look at it as a promotion or a lateral transfer, but I'm really happy that she's willing to serve.
Fantastic.
Great.
So Trustee Bockhorst, would you like to make that motion? Or should we continue to move Lisa?
Sure. I guess was the motion to approve Miss Libra. I don't have her last name in front of me right now. Forgive me.
Libra Loest.
Yep.
Libra Loest for
Design Review Board.
Design Review Board.
Yep. So we had just made a, we just moved the Conservation Committee recommendation through. So we're on to this one right now. So if you, I'm sure, was that a motion?
Yeah,
that was.
Okay.
Yeah, so moved. Need a second.
So moved. So moved. Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Is that the completion of this agenda item?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Forgive me for getting on this call late, but we had conservation and DRB. Is that correct?
Conservation was already done.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If that is it, then I will, entertain a motion to adjourn from JP&L.
So moved.
Adjourn from each. So moved. Okay.
Thank you.
And Trustee Baldoff seconds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Diane, we're gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss you too.
I'm gonna miss it here. I will. I'll come back and visit though. I won't be too far away.
You better have a lot of fun while you're gone.
I am taking care of my mom. That's the first point.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're ready to go with strategic initiatives.
All right. So this being my first one, I'm going to need a little bit of guidance to make sure I get us started correctly.
You betcha. So it's 6:17, so we can convene the meeting because we have a quorum.
Okay.
With Trustee Baldoff, Trustee Ursing, Trustee Backhorst, and we can start working on the item that we have listed on the agenda, which is to review a survey for the Historic Initiatives Project. So
okay.
if you'd like, I can get you started.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
So in 2019, the village board scheduled an initiative to provide education on historic tools that could be used to help assist with preservation. The project got delayed due to COVID at that time. And sorry, just getting some people entering the meeting. And so we delayed the project. We came back in the spring of this year and executed a three-part series, which revolved around historic education. So the first was a review of the history of Shorewood. The second was review of a 2011 architectural survey that Shorewood had done in years past. And then the third was a review of different historic tools that could be used or exercised by the village should we choose to proceed with some additional implementation of items to help foster historic preservation. So included within your packet were a list of questions and survey responses that were asked in those sessions. In addition to the questions that we asked for those who chose to attend the session, we wanted to go out and get community-wide feedback in the form of a Google survey doc, which would be released by the village manager's memo through the Historical Society and through other avenues that we would leverage here in the village. The desire was to run that for about 30 to 45 days, collect the results, and then bring those results back along with those gathered from the last educational series to the village board to discuss what possible next steps we may desire to consider or pursue with regards to historic preservation. So in addition to the survey results, you will see a draft survey located within your packet that asks a brief 5 questions that we were looking to include within a Google Doc survey. And we wanted the Strategic Initiatives Committee to weigh in as to whether you felt the questions were appropriate or if there was anything we should take out or add. And maybe for purposes of discussion, we could just go through each one. Sound like a plan?
Sounds great.
Okay. So introduction relays that it's a short survey. We don't want to we're at the start of a discussion, we didn't want to overburden anyone with using this tool. 5 short questions. Relays what we've done. If people want more information, references them back to the website where those educational sessions have been recorded and uploaded to our website. We also relay that if you have additional input or comments, you can also direct them to me. And then we start out with question 1, which is tell us about yourself. Do you live in the village of Shorewood? Do you live in a building that was built before 1950? And are you a property owner of a building built before 1950? The distinction there is that we have 53% of their population here in Shorewood are renters. And so we wanted to try to gauge where the input and response was coming from. Any questions? Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
So I and maybe it's just more of a technicality, but, and I understand that you're trying to gauge where people are from. Could you repeat the question you asked regarding, are you a property owner?
There are two. Do you live in a building that was built before 1950? And are you a property owner of a building built before 1950?
Understandable. Okay, I didn't catch the first part of that. I was just going to make sure that it was not stated. So, you know, are you a property owner? So just that's fine. Do you reside in the property, you know, built before 1950? But I won't dwell on this.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't disagree though with where you're headed. I think just because I worry that I want to make sure that we're capturing the right input and capturing it correctly. So it doesn't, because we could have people who own multiple properties in the village, but only live in one, or own multiple properties and live in none. So I would just want to think about, is there a way to make sure, you know, we could have one person, you know, who answers yes to all these three questions, and that's just one person's input. Or you could have three people answer yes to only one of those things, and that's three people's input, if I'm making sense, and I don't know if I am. So I just wonder if there's a way to just tweak the wording of like, if yes, then this question, or if no, then this question, to make sure
like
that we're not like,
chart?
Yeah, just to make sure we're not like, I mean, because you could essentially be like kind of overweighting some people's feedback, I believe. At least that would be my concern.
So Chairwoman, I guess what I'd like to say about that is, yes, I agree with you. You want to be clear and capture, I guess threefold. You want to capture the necessary information, and we don't want to sound classist or turn anyone off from completing this as well.
Yeah, just to jump in, are we looking for the statistical information of the renters versus property owners? You know, and if not, can we just make the question, do you live in a residential home, or do you live in a residential building built before 1950? That way it's kind of, you've got a building, then you've got a residential, but we're not being specific if you're a property owner or not, because I feel like, I don't know, that sticks out to me a little bit, but it might be just overthinking. So
do you want to delete, are you a property owner of a building built before 1950?
My suggestion would be just to mimic the first two questions. Do you live in a property, or do you live in a residential property built before 1950? I think that's what you're getting at with that question, unless we're specifically trying to find the data of people that are answering this, if they're renters or property owners. If that's the goal here with this question, then, you know, so be it. Was that
if I could add to that, and depending on the answer that Rebecca gives us, is do you rent or own a building? Do you live in? It depends on what you're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are just really sensitive to being renters, you know. So I would hate to. I don't know. I think people would be sensitive to this question as well. But if I think the three questions sort of mimicked each other, then I think it might be a little bit more palatable. But maybe you could explain where you were going with this question a little bit, Rebecca.
And some of the other tools that we have looked at, property owners may have specific rights or not relative to their ownership status of the building, or what they could do. For example, a renter wouldn't take advantage of tax credits.
Sure.
That would be the property owner. That's a specific tool used for historic preservation. Or whether there were regulations that we would be considering or requirements for how people restore historic properties.
I think, you know, so to me, that makes a lot of sense to get that information. I just wonder about the wording a little bit. Maybe it could be worded. I just thinking that people are going to be really sensitive about this kind of these questions about renting versus property ownership in Shorewood. Maybe there's a way to just be a little bit more sensitive with the question, with how the question's written. But you know, if you need that data, then I think that's important to keep that in. It's just, that one sticks out to me, right? The first two are, do you live in a building? Do you live in a Shorewood? Do you live in a building? Are you a property owner? So I think that's just, you know, I don't know if you want us to critique it or not. That would be our critique. I think my critique personally, but.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you own a property that would be eligible for historic designation or that was built prior to X date?
Before,
and if they answer no, you know that they don't own.
I think that's the question right now is, are you a property owner of a building built before 1950?
Okay.
We may be overthinking this, and
we might be.
You know, I think we could probably, I think we are overthinking this. That's my gut feeling. I think if you asked us to analyze any question like this, we probably would, but I think we're all under the assumption that people are really sensitive in Shorewood about this type of question. So I just want to make sure that we're handling it properly and thinking about it.
I think that you're right, but I'd rather be hypersensitive versus insensitive. So a property owner is a title. Do you own property built before X in this village? To me, that's a little softer. It's, you know, not so archaic, and nor is it regal.
That makes sense to me. If there's no objections, we can change that.
I'm comfortable with that change.
I would just, instead of property, I would say, do you own a building?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Great, let's move on to number 2. Do you believe that it's important for the village to establish criteria that identify design concerns for historic properties and help property owners ensure that exterior alterations respect the character of an individual property?
It's a pretty loaded question. I mean, it seems good. Just gotta think about it. Design concerns for historic properties.
I'm great with the sentiment.
So the village, okay, all right. Do you believe it's important for the village? So, okay. So this question is just asking if they want property owners to, you know, for the village to establish some sort of, I don't know who in the village would do this, but, you know, we would start looking at our buildings and figuring out the, you know, the more historic properties, what the design, you know, aesthetic should be. Is that the idea?
Sure.
There?
So a group like the design review board, for example,
okay. They
would establish criteria that if someone would have exterior alterations to their home and it was historic, that they have guidelines to ensure that they respect the character of the property.
Okay. And I assume right now, forgive me, you know, for not knowing this, but is this something that this is part of the program we're working on right now to figure out what those historic kind of pieces, elements of homes would be?
We aren't working on it yet. So if we chose to move forward to identify design concerns and guidelines, that would be a step we would take later down the road.
Got it. Okay. So right now we're surveying people to see if this is what they'd be interested in seeing.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. I think
so if we're going to talk about, you know, kind of the language, I would say we should be consistent with not using property owner again. And I wonder if it is kind of there's a lot of information in this sentence. So I wonder if it's just more, do you believe it is important for the village to establish criteria that identify design concerns for historic properties and help establish clear guidelines, you know, something more about guidelines. I don't know if that's kind of where we're headed. And that way we don't have to say property owners and kind of ensure that exterior alterations respect the character of an individual property. I just feel like people might read a lot into that question, because I think that's really what we're getting at, right? Is we want to have some clear process and clear guidelines, not have people like, I worry that people might, you know, overanalyze some of these questions. And I want to make it just very simple for them because it is a lot of information.
I do agree. It's a chunky sentence there, but you know, it takes a couple times to read it. But I think it, you know, after that, it makes some sense. I don't know if there's a way to clean that sentence up a little bit and to make it a little bit more palatable. Maybe 2 sentences. I don't know. Just I think that's our suggestion.
Okay.
Is that,
so with regards to the property owners, Melissa, is there, and just, should we just, and help owners or help
residents?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if that's even
so the only
necessary to include at all, right? Because I don't think that most renters are going to think like, hey, I'm going to knock down this house I live in. You know, I think it's kind of especially for a survey, we're just trying to get people's feedback because we're not going to say only property owners can answer this question anyway.
Sure.
Anyone can answer it. So I think it's more of just, you know, is it important to establish criteria that identify design concerns? And to me, it's just like help establish clear guidelines, or you can just say help ensure that alterations are consistent with those criteria or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, are we ready to move on to number 3? Okay. Number 3, do you believe it is important for the village to establish criteria to evaluate whether a historic property may be demolished?
Seems straightforward to me.
Number 4, what direction do you think the village should take relating to historic preservation? And then there's multiple options. Do you want me to read through them or?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think this
I'd
works.
be happy to. I just don't. I don't want to be redundant with what you have in front of you.
I think this works.
And just a process question, is this going to be like people can choose all that apply, or do they only get to choose one of these?
I was presuming they could pick all that apply.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this looks good.
All right, number 5. I would like more education on, and then again with this, it would be all, they could click as many as they would like.
Works. That's great.
I'm good there.
Okay. Well, I think I have the direction that I need.
Good.
Any other questions or comments?
You think those work well for you? That'll work for you?
Yeah, I think that'll be great. If you have any other thoughts, you're welcome to reach out to me. If not, we'll prep for the Google survey, and then I'll likely won't be back in front of you with this topic until August.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And sorry for the barking.
Okay. And then do I need to make a motion here?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
But do we need to move to approve the survey questions?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, that'd be great.
So I move to approve the survey questions regarding historic preservation tools. And Trustee Bockhorst had to step away for a moment. So Arthur, put you on the spot.
So
all right.
I think I seconded and moved it.
Oh, you seconded? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. She read the motion, I seconded, but I should have moved it and she should have seconded. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
Right? It is.
All those in favor?
Okay. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. And then just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And Melissa, do second.
Oh, second, yes.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So much harder with two people.
I know. All
Okay,
right,
so
our next meeting starts at 6:45.
6:45?
Yep,
Oh,
so we're
okay.
gonna have to, you were very efficient.
Wow. You
I know,
want to
this
chat
rarely
about that a little
happens.
bit more? Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
So,
we'll just take a 10-minute break and then, or 8-minute break.
or 8
break
minutes?
back here. Yep, at
Sounds
6:45.
good. Okay, thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Hey, Leanne.
Good evening.
We ended our first part of the meeting a little early, so I think everybody, we just took a couple minute break, so I'm sure people are returning.
Sure. I think we're okay. I think we have plenty of time.
All right, well, it's 6:46, so we'd like to call this Public Works Committee meeting to order. First on the agenda, or the only thing on the agenda, I think, is Public Works Committee review of Hubbard Park parking lot reconstruction, green infrastructure design scope and alternatives. Very exciting stuff, Leanne. This is a lot of fun here.
It is. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was about to just kick it off to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna just turn it over to Heather Sabo from SCH and her team, which I will allow her to introduce. Okay. Heather, I think I saw you on the line, right?
Sure, yep.
Okay.
Welcome.
I'm gonna share the screen.
Okay.
You have the, okay.
Otherwise I have the PowerPoint up as well.
All right, so should be you.
Oh, wait. Right now I can see your screen.
Okay, well, that's not good.
Should I share?
Let me try it again. Still not.
Just the Internet Explorer.
Here, why don't we make her a Heather, right?
Yep.
We're gonna, why don't you click by her name, Leanne, and you can make her, I'm not host. Click by her name, there's a more button.
There we go.
Yeah, and then make her a co.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
All right. How's that?
Not working yet.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Cool.
All right. So I am here with also Brent Teskey from Freshwater Engineering and Linda Reed from Water 365. I work for SEH, and I'm kind of leading the project with the sort of site civil design, and Brent and Freshwater are doing the green infrastructure specific design, and Linda Reed did the green infrastructure funding. So this is just kind of to give you an overview of the existing condition, not too much detail, but the pavement in the parking lot is okay. There is some patching. There's right now just an island. There's about 43 parking stalls. There is a storm sewer that runs through the middle of the parking lot, which we do intend to keep. As we think about green infrastructure and we think about our grading options and our layout options, we also have to think about the constraints of the site. So I apologize, there's no north arrows, but these are all looking north. You can see the north side, there's a pretty steep slope. That's a little bit greater than 2:1 right now. Also on the south side, there's a steep slope. The north side is going up to the house you see there. The south side goes down to the road below. The west side is a retaining wall and a steep slope up to the Oak Leaf Trail, as well as a tunnel that goes under the Hubbard Park. And the east side ties into the existing roadway. One thing about steep slopes is that they're hard to revegetate if we disturb them. So we don't necessarily want to be moving those outside curb lines in or out because that requires us to disturb the slope. Additionally, for slopes like the one on the south side, we want to kind of keep a wide enough terrace of sorts that can be easily mowed and maintained. And the retaining wall, we're not exactly sure what kind of footing that has, but regardless, it's really best to not disturb the retaining wall. So the existing parking stalls, we think we have 46 roughly. The main grant we applied for was the Mmsd GIP grant. It basically goes on a per gallon captured reimbursement basis. With the GIP grant, Linda, do you want to give an outline of it?
Sure, no? I'll go ahead. Let me do this too, so you know who I am. Yeah, basically when we looked at funding opportunities for this project, because the construction timeline was tight, because of the date when the village wanted to start construction, we were kind of limited with regard to what kind of funding we could go for. A lot of times there's a lot longer a schedule for applying and then reviewing, but this one worked out really well. So MMSD has monies to basically reimburse green infrastructure, the cost of green infrastructure on projects for certain eligible parties, and the village was an eligible party for the funding. The thing that's sort of interesting about this funding is they entertain proposals at all phases of a project. So whether it's, you know, from the time of very conception all the way through almost ready for construction. And so when we initially submitted the proposal, you know, we had some basic information about the site, but not enough time to really get a lot of design work done prior to the grant deadline. So we went in with the idea of what would be sort of a reasonable amount of green infrastructure and what type could we plan for without, you know, sort of cutting ourselves off from funding. So making estimates about what we thought we could go for. And again, because it's a reimbursement grant, if the award or if the design ends up different than the amount awarded based on what we put in our initial plan, MMSD is able to work with us, or if it's a different type. So right now, the project was awarded $51,605 to reimburse any cost of the GI. If we decide that the GI that's going to go in, that the village selects, doesn't reach that amount, which is basically 50% of the cost, the amount will be lowered by MMSD. And then again, if Heather's got some design she's going to show you, if we come up with a different design than what we first proposed, but it's still in that dollar amount, the district doesn't care what we're installing so long as it's stormwater capture. So we've got the award. I think Leanne's holding off, the village is holding off on signing that until we know which design will be selected. So the award letter will be accurate as it relates to the design.
Thank you, Linda. And we did confirm with MMSD specifically with regard to this project that we are not obligating ourselves to use every dollar of this, and it's not it's not an all or nothing thing. So if we don't use part of it, we don't lose all of it. We're not obligated to use it in the future. Nothing like that happens. So basically the award just gets reduced proportionally if we don't use all of it, which we did actually aim kind of on the high side. So we may not use all of it. So this was the first alternative we considered. And you can see here the curb lines basically exist where they do today. The dark colored lines are the proposed lines. We've added permeable pavers up on the north and south end in the parking stalls. And we've added a bioretention basin in the center island. And we've also added some native plantings. This design preserves the 4 mature trees that are in the center island. It also adds, all of the designs actually add a van ADA accessible access aisle because we don't currently have one. It also proposes a green roof dumpster enclosure, which is actually just a dumpster enclosure that's strong enough to hold what it needs to for it to be a green roof. There's actually a company that's done quite a bit of them around the Milwaukee area. One of the reasons we thought that would be cool would be because it'd be visible from the Oak Leaf Trail. So that would be kind of a neat, I guess, public interaction with it, so to speak.
Can you explain it a bit more? I apologize to stop you there. I'm just not sure. I still don't understand what a green roof dumpster enclosure is. Oh,
so it would just be a dumpster enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually wood slats. It could be fence. Typically, we like to use wood. And then on the roof, it's a green roof. So there's live plants.
Okay.
That live on, and they're plants that are not engineered, but they're selected specifically for their stormwater capture and retention.
That's fine. Okay, great. Thank you.
I think we have a picture at, Heather, we have a picture at the end of the presentation, correct?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, yep. I didn't make it past alternative 3. I didn't go to the next after that, so I apologize. You got me there. I made it down to alternative 3. I just didn't get that far. So thank you for the clarification.
That's okay. Yeah. And Brent, do you want to kind of talk through the mechanics of a rain garden?
Yep, I can do that. So the rain garden is essentially a small depression that collects rainwater. There's similar to a green roof, you've got a lot of vegetation that's selected specifically for stormwater retention. That means, generally speaking, these are going to be very tolerant plant species. So some of the contaminants and things that might be coming off are not going to kill these plants. They're also usually pretty good at pulling water out of the soil. And then any water that is above and beyond that volume will sort of infiltrate down, and depending on how big the storm event is, there's also typically an under drain in there. So some of that excess water can then be routed to the existing storm sewer lines.
Sounds good, thank you. And we do intend to keep the existing storm sewer system and adjust those inlet rims so that if something weird would happen, some major event, you still do have that as a backup for capture as well. And you'll notice the interior path of the island, we're proposing permeable pavers, which, similar to a rain garden, capture water. You guys have them in your alleys already. We did not put them on the crosswalks just because our thought was that with vehicles turning and possibly pulling as they accelerate forward, that might not be the best for permeable pavers. So this alternative 1 has 47 parking stalls and the feature you see below. This is the same image, it just doesn't have the aerial on it. I should also mention this would be one-way traffic, which I think right now, the way the parking lot is, it kind of implies one-way traffic. When you start to get into two-way traffic and 90-degree perpendicular parking stalls, you start to get into very wide drive aisles, which when you have confined space isn't the greatest alternative, in my opinion. Does anybody have any questions about alternative 1? Right now. So this is a very early cost estimate. Bear in mind, costs have been very volatile the last year or so. Even before COVID, they were a little bit volatile, but right now, this is costing that we have from bid tabs and bid tab analysis from the last year. We try to look at what bid tabs came in around southeastern Wisconsin for projects that had similar quantities. We try to stay within 10%, and then if there's nothing within 10%, we go out to 20% in either direction, and then out to 30%. That's how we came up with some of our unit costs and our costs.
So there could be a good chance that this comes in under budget.
I think it's likely that, well, I guess it depends what prices do overall. I would, in my opinion, this is probably pretty conservative.
Pretty conservative, okay.
At this stage, yeah. So I would guess that if it was going to go in a direction, I would get, in my opinion, I would think it would go lower because as oil, because a lot of the problem has been in disruptions of material flow to manufacturers and raw material flow and things like that, which then is also tied in with the, what's going on with oil, and it's all interchangeable. So.
would that grant that we're applying for go towards the GI here on this, the subtotal of 118,698? Would that
Yes.
$50,000 go towards that, or half? 50? I think it's 50,000, right?
Yes. Well, actually, the gift grant features in alternative 1 come up to about $37,000 of that grant, and that's based on the square footage. It's based on, basically for the gift grant, you look at your square footage of certain elements, and then they have a pretty conservative number for how many gallons per square foot they think will be collected, and then it's reimbursed per gallon. Right. So the number you see here is accurate to alternative 1. The numbers you see on the left are performance calculations, which are site specific and based on a wind slam analysis, which is a stormwater quality and capture program used to analyze the site based on the actual like slope and everything else that's specific to Hubbard Park parking lot.
Leanne or Heather, do you want to talk about green solutions right away? I think it might help frame.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Leanne,
I can jump in and do that. So as you know, trustees, we annually receive an allocation of green solutions funding from the district, and the purpose of that is for stormwater BMP installations, green infrastructure installations. And we've talked about that in the context of some of our conversations about alley projects and some other things going into that. As Heather mentioned previously, the Green Infrastructure Partnership Program is a different source of grant funding, also from Mmsd, but different. And that provides for up to 50% of the eligible green infrastructure costs, or the 51,000. We're not going to get there, but so it'll be up to the 50% of the costs. The GI cost that would not be covered under the GIPP program could be covered under using some of our green solutions funding. So if it's the board's desire to do so, we could spend $0 out of pocket on the green infrastructure components of this parking lot.
Thank you. So that's alternative 1. Here's alternative 2. This is kind of where we attempted to do perpendicular parking with two-way traffic. You can see the wider drive aisle really kind of take away from some of the green space in the impervious area. Also in this alternative, as it's shown, you would lose all of the mature trees in the center island, which the mature trees do have stormwater benefits as well. They're not something that you get reimbursed for because they're already existing, but they do capture, they stay between 25 and 50 gallons of stormwater. So a lot of times in parking lots like this, if you have two-way traffic, it becomes a little bit congested. So when you're able to have the one-way traffic with the angle parking, people kind of, as you're driving, you learn angle parking one way, got it. But we did want to assess this. And then you'll notice here again that these outside curb lines don't really move. And these outside curb lines kind of drive what we can do on the inside as well. So alternative 2, 49 stalls, two-way traffic potentially. You can see the permeable pavers. We don't take them anywhere near the wall because we don't want to saturate the ground in front of the retaining wall. Alternative 2, there was quite a bit more in terms of pavement we needed to put down and there was a lot more loss of existing pervious area. Here the GIP grant is a little bit more, but the overall cost is a little bit more as well. Alternative 3, we go back to one-way parking, angle parking. These are actually about 70 degree angle stalls. The dumpster enclosure had moved from down here to up here, but it is still accessible with the garbage truck. We're also proposing a lot more opportunities for native planting, and that's something that, you know, was an interest was expressed in as well. We do preserve 3 of the 4 trees in the inner island here. The one that is lost is a calorie pear tree. So again, the van parking stall that you might have seen over here before could now be over here for an ADA stall. This also has 49 stalls. So in this scenario, the south end of the island, or I'm sorry, the west end of the island would basically go away, as you can see. Another part of our design too was to maintain the concrete slab that's right as you come out of the tunnel, because the concrete slab is in really good shape and it makes for a good anchor point to anchor everything else up as well. The GIF grant here is about in line with what the one for alternative 1 was as well. So this is to summarize the 3 alternatives. We did estimate with a 15% contingency. Milwaukee County right now is using a 20% contingency. They typically use 10%. So something to consider about the volatility. Most of the elements of the design can be plug and play. So if you saw something on one that you liked or didn't like, we might be able to see if we can work it into a sort of composite design. Further cost savings could be found by reducing the changes to the southeastern extent, which if I flip back here really quick, was where we had this pedestrian refuge out right above the number 49. We don't actually really have to touch that radius at all. That was just something that we saw might be an area where we could improve.
What did you call that? Pedestrian?
Right above the number 49 there, I call it pedestrian refuge. So that would just be maybe a mountable curb with a detectable warning field. Which, something funny about detectable warning fields, all through college, I thought that they were supposed to like make a sound and that's why they were detectable. I just thought every one I ever stepped on was broken. Turns out that they're detectable because of all the little domes.
That's funny.
But that was something that we had seen way back when we started as a possible improvement there. But that, I mean, that's, if you're looking for cost savings, that's something that could go away.
Yeah. And Dan, what tree is, can you just go back to that alternative 3, just to, or you don't even have to go back to it, but what tree is being removed from alternative 3?
The calorie pear tree. So right under the 20-foot access aisle on the, I'm sorry, on the west side. It's the one that's kind of grayed up. I can show you. It would be this one.
That one right there. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Leanne? Is that a losable tree?
Yes. It's rated currently in fair to poor condition. It's typically those types of trees have a limited lifespan. They're considered ornamental trees. And this one is definitely reaching the end of its. So we did review that with forester staff, and they have no concerns. In fact, they suggested that, you know, if not to design around that tree.
Good. Okay, that helps. Thank you.
The calorie pear is actually considered invasive as well.
Oh wow!
Because it came in as an ornamental tree. It came in as an ornamental tree, and people started using them everywhere, but it's not native.
Yeah. Let's get rid of it.
The others that you see on the island are honey locust.
I like those trees a little bit better.
Okay, Heather, can we, I want to make sure that we give the committee enough time to review. So can we get, work through these illustrative examples?
Sure. Green infrastructure elements, the porous pavement or pavers, you guys have in your alleys. This is not one of your alleys, but this is sort of what a path might look like with pavers. It's just pavers. There's a place for your water to drain to and be stored underneath, and then there's an under drain, which runs it into the storm sewer. Fire retention or rain garden. This is actually a rain garden on Monroe Street in Madison that Freshwater did, I believe. And again, it captures the water, it slows the runoff rate, and then it ends up in an under drain, and then it discharges to the storm sewer. This is the green roof. It would be a dumpster. This is not what the dumpster enclosure would look like, but this is what the green roof could potentially look like if you can see it from above. It just captures what little water it can and keeps it. And then the native landscaping is just native plants have deep, wide root systems that just do good things for retaining water. And that's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. It's exciting to be talking about green infrastructure. So thank you for all the hard work.
Definitely. Thank you.
Leanne, before I go to Trustee Baldoff, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to summarize, you know, the constraints with the current layout and size of the parking lot really do limit how much we can change that's layout and configuration. So you will have noticed that each of the alternatives has some similarities to the other two. In terms of the green infrastructure discussion, the percentage of total suspended solid reduction, which you remember TSS is one of the TMDL guidelines that we have to meet. For all intents and purposes, they offer the same. Alternative 1 is 0.2% higher than the other two. So again, for all intents and purposes, they achieve the same TSS reduction. Costs are relatively similar, though alternative 3 does have the lowest cost. Alternative 3 also maximizes the available space for parking, and in fact creates a couple additional spaces over what is currently there. Brings up, all of them bring the ADA parking to code. which is good. So at this point, staff is recommending that you forward alternative 3 onto the village board for full consideration. That would happen at your next meeting. But with that, that's my summary.
Thank you. Trustee Baldoff.
I actually don't really, have any questions. I feel like the information we, received in the packet, coupled with, the kind of walking through it, has answered any questions that I would have had. Yeah, and, I would just say, I appreciate that, this is something that I don't have a high level of expertise in green infrastructure design. So I appreciate you, walking us through this and making it very easy for someone to follow along.
Thank you. So just a couple comments. I think, for me personally, obviously I want to utilize as much of the green infrastructure funding as we can and amount of space as we can use it here. But I do like the way alternative 3 works. That's where I was naturally drawn to. It preserves trees. And to be honest, that area could use more parking as well. I like the fact that the ADA parking is, closest to the entrance, as opposed to on the other side. I think that works really nicely. And I think there's a really nice mix of GI and available parking. So I would definitely be on board with recommending number 3. One thing, I hate to make anybody's life more difficult, but I would love to get like a cost analysis on if we remove the pedestrian refuge from that. What would our savings be for that? Outside of that, I do think everything else here, I think it is terrific, and I really appreciate the work done on all of these. Does that make sense, Leanne? Is it possible just to get a quick?
Yeah, we can talk about that. The one thing that I neglected to mention in the summary, and I'm going to say now, and I'm going to say multiple times when we talk about this as a full board, is 30%. We're about 30% into the planning stage.
Yeah.
In my time working with the village board, we have never shared a cost estimate at 30%.
Okay.
It's just too undefined at this point.
Okay.
And so we will continue to work
that makes sense
through this and refine this. Really, we don't really start seriously looking at costs until we're past 60%.
Okay.
So we have a bit of a ways to go before I'm really comfortable saying anything about how I think, this is going to be at bid. But yeah, we will definitely look at all options to reduce costs, or, even just tweaks that might make everything work better. We'll continue to work together on that through the rest of the design process.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. With that said, I'm going to move that Hubbard Park parking lot design alternative number 3 be moved forwarded to village board for consideration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Me too. Aye. All right. So was that all we have on the agenda tonight for Public Works? We'll go back up to my...
I believe it is.
That is all we have on the agenda, yes.
Okay, so it looks like we have that's it for this evening for us until 7:30. So unless there's anything else that we need to talk about, we can adjourn and take an 11-minute break until the next meeting. Sound good?
That works for me.
Me too.
So I just need a motion. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, dokie. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you,
yep.
everybody.
All right.
Thanks, Heather, Linda, and Brent.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Very much. Bye.